Have you heard of the term cognitive dissonance?
No.
No. But you will be very familiar with the symptoms, I believe. So do you remember when we used to have a stalwart?
Oh yeah, great big, enormous green military vehicle, 6 wheels that big, pointy at the front, looked like something out of Thunderbirds. Everyone pretended it wasn't there.
Very so. And do you remember where the fuel filler was?
Right on the roof.
Exactly. So when we went to a petrol station to fill it up, one of us had to climb up the side.
Yeah, one of us had to be on the roof and the other one had to pass the fuel hose up to them.
So not really something you could miss.
Yeah.
Not really. It had presence.
It definitely had presence.
Now I also remember other times when we were in there, there'd be other cars, people, you know, regular folk filling up their cars with fuel.
Yes.
But I remember them kind of looking away.
Definitely.
Like just not acknowledging it was here.
Oh, quite right. It's like, that can't be happening.
Exactly.
I'm not looking at that.
And I bet if we'd stopped them down the road and we'd said, see anything unusual today?
Yeah.
They'd gone, no. They'd have no recollection. It's not that they would have lied about it. It wasn't a memory that had laid down. It hadn't happened. They hadn't seen it. Their eyes had seen it.
Do you
their brain,
reckon?
I reckon. And so it turns out the correct term for this is cognitive dissonance.
You looked it up?
I have. I came across it by accident, as with many things in life. So I discovered this term. Now, it turns out that human beings, in order to deal with a complex world where we can't know everything, we have a model of the world.
Yeah, the thing in our head that
Yes.
tells us this is how the world
This is how
works.
the world works. Yeah. And we have what we perceive through our eyes and touch and information, so on. And we constantly update our model to try and match the what we perceive.
Yeah.
Now, dissonance is when those two don't match up. Well, cognitive, being the thinking part particularly,
Right.
is when those two bits don't match up. And there is a theory that suggests that human beings don't like there to be a difference. It causes stress.
Well, it does, doesn't it? You see something that doesn't make any sense. You're looking at it and you go, that can't be happening. And that's a stressful moment.
Well, we do this at a conscious level because we can kind of go through that and we are aware of it. But just generally, even for everybody, we attempt to reduce that difference.
Yeah. So you'd look it up and find out what's going on.
Well, that's what you and I might do. We'd try and alter our model of the world. We'd adjust our model of the world to fit what we see.
Which we do constantly.
We do constantly. But the other way of doing it, if you're really embedded to your model,
There's another way of doing it?
is to ignore the evidence. And not just ignore it, not just see it and ignore it, but act in a way, your behavior changes in a way that your evidence doesn't come in. So for example, if you have, for instance, a particular belief system, you spend your time around people that support that belief system and express the same thing and don't express the alternative. Yeah, so your dissonance is reduced because your evidence, your input is reduced. Yeah? Your experience has changed, and so again, you've reduced the stress. And there is a correct term for this, and I said this is the term cognitive dissonance. And I've found, as I've wandered through life now, that actually this explains an awful lot of things that go on in the world. Things that be like, how can that possibly be the case? How can you think that? You can see that's not the case. And it's just, I think it's like the stalwart, they're just, it's going through the eyes perhaps, or the ears, but it doesn't, it's blocked. It doesn't go any further because it's inconvenient.
It can't be happening.
Yeah.
That's not, yeah. It does explain an awful lot.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah. So if someone sees something that makes them feel uncomfortable because they can't explain it and it doesn't make any sense to them and it doesn't fit with their idea of how the world works, they just block it out. This isn't happening. Carry on regardless. They
could do that. They could just, in future, not be in that environment. Or, for instance, there was an example given of a particular cult that thought that there was an alien spacecraft was going to come down and rescue them from destruction from the Earth. And they had a set time, and they'd always been in a cult. And no doubt they'd already spent lots of money. So on the prescribed time, they all went there, and oddly enough, there was no alien spacecraft.
How very
clearly,
disappointing
it
for
is.
them.
So clearly, the evidence does not match the theory. So if you accept that there was no spacecraft and that they were all lied, that would mean that their theory was wrong, and that's obviously quite distressing that they were cheated and lied to.
Yeah.
Or they could decide that the aliens had given the Earth a second chance, and we're going to come back at a future point in time, which is what they did, which would allow them to continue to think.
I love it.
It's good, isn't it?
I love it.
Yeah.
That means there's no point actually learning anything.
There is no point learning anything at all.
Excellent.
There we go.
So there's two types of people in the world: people who ignore the evidence, and engineers.
Exactly. And we know they're all wrong.